Wonderful. We were so lucky to have her. Her dad is here in the back. Give him a round of applause, too. Thank you so much, Taylor. That was wonderful. So good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank WBUR for hosting us. This is such a wonderful space. And so I want to welcome also our audience via live stream. When we talk about the future of food, most people picture farms and fields, but one of the most important food systems on the planet is the one we don't see nearly as often: our oceans, our rivers, our lakes, and our coastal communities. And yet Blue Foods nourish more than 3 billion people around the world and support the livelihoods of roughly 800 million people. I'm Danny Nierenberg. I'm president and co-founder of Food Tank with Bernard Pollock, who's also in the back. And I'm so excited to welcome you to our first annual Blue Food Summit. So, again, so delighted and excited to be here. Over the years, I've had the honor of interviewing hundreds and hundreds of farmers around the world, but I've also had the opportunity to learn from fishers, kelp farmers, aquaculture producers who are just as deeply connected to the ecosystems that sustain our food systems. One fisher I spoke with several years ago told me something that has really stayed with me. He said, when people talk about protecting the oceans, they sometimes forget that protecting the oceans also means protecting the world who depend on it, the people who depend on it. And that really captures what today's conversations are about and why they matter, the people. Blue foods are essential to nourishing people and supporting livelihoods around the world, but these systems, as you all know, are under enormous pressure. Last year, global ocean temperatures reached record highs, and at the same time, our waters are facing pollution, habitat destruction, and significant biodiversity loss. And yet, even in many of our food and agriculture conversations, blue food and aquatic systems are still overlooked and ignored. And that's something we urgently need to change. And that's exactly why I'm excited to be here during the North American Seafood Expo to host Food Tank's first annual Blue Food Summit and put these systems and the solutions that support them front and center. Because there is so much reason for hope. Organizations like Whole Chain are helping create digital traceability tools that bring greater transparency and accountability to seafood supply chains. The Marine Stewardship Council is using certification to end overfishing, improve biodiversity, and help eaters make the sustainable choice the easy choice. And across the seafood industry, producers, retailers, and innovators are finding new ways to protect biodiversity while also still feeding a growing population. So today we're going to explore many of these solutions. We'll talk about how transparency and traceability are critical to building sustainable blue food systems. We'll discuss efforts to diversify the seafood industry and create more equitable opportunities across the sector. And we'll look at the role of retailers and what they're doing to build better systems for both producers and eaters around blue foods. And throughout the day, we'll hear directly from blue food producers who are working every day to care for our oceans and waters while nourishing communities. So before I begin, I want to thank our partners who made today possible. Again, thank you to our host, WBUR, in this beautiful, beautiful space. Give them a round of applause. Thanks to our partners at Better Food Future. Give them a round of applause. Thank you to the Marine Stewardship Council. Give them a round of applause. Thank you to the Culinary Institute of America. Give them a round of applause. And thank you to Bluefina. Please give them a round of applause. We are incredibly grateful for all of the support. Before we dive in, just a quick housekeeping note. To make sure we end on time, and we will, the conversations today will be fast-paced and dynamic. If I need to move panels along, even when the discussions are really great, I hope you'll understand and forgive me later. And we'd love for you to share today's conversations on social media using the hashtags FoodTank and SENA 2026. Please also tag @FoodTank. So now let's get things started. To kick things off, I'd like to invite Kirsten Kalkhurst, the Director of Business Partnerships at WBUR, to say a few words. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Danny. I still am just reaming from that performance. That was incredible. I just want to say that Taylor Hurd was amazing, right? I mean, come on, we should start more events at CitySpace like that, I just have to say. Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. As Danny said, I'm Kirsten Kalkers. I'm the Director of Business Partnerships here at WBUR. We're so delighted to have you here at CitySpace. For those of you who have come before, thank you so much for joining us at our events. CitySpace is WBUR's home for live conversations, for community gatherings, bringing people together around ideas that matter. And we host everything here at CitySpace, from podcast recordings and policy discussions to cultural events and community gatherings. And in fact, just a small plug, because I am one of the sponsors, for those of you who might be looking for a really beautiful event space to host one of your private parties, or perhaps a beautiful event like this, we hope you'll consider CitySpace. So at WBUR, a big part of our mission is covering the issues that matter to our community. And increasingly, that includes the intersection of climate, sustainability, and food systems. Topics that affect all of us and benefit from thoughtful dialogue and diverse perspectives. In fact, WBUR's own senior reporter, Deb Becker, who will be moderating the first panel, has spent years covering a variety of policy issues across Massachusetts and New England. So we're especially grateful that conversations like the ones you're having here are happening at CitySpace. Before we begin, I'll just add that my team here at WBUR, the Business Partnerships team, we work with organizations that want to engage audiences around important issues and ideas. We collaborate with brands and institutions to bring their stories to life through thoughtful storytelling with custom podcasts, digital platforms we use, broadcast exposure, and events like this one. So with that, thank you again for being here. Thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon talking about things that really matter. I'm sure that you will enjoy a wonderful afternoon of insightful and inspiring conversation. Danny, thank you again for choosing CitySpace. Enjoy the afternoon.
And again, thank you to WBUR. I love this space. It's so great. I now get to sit down with two of our co-hosts to talk about why we came together today. So we have Jackie Marks, the Senior Public Relations and Communications Manager at the Marine Stewardship Council, and Robert E. Jones, the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, Industry, Leadership, and Impact at the Culinary Institute of America. Give them another round of applause. So Robert and Jackie, I think one of the things that really most excites me about today is that we get to do a lot of myth busting. And the press who report on blue food and seafood and our oceans often don't get seafood in the ways that we want them to. And I'm wondering if you can both talk about that. Maybe Jackie, I turn to you first.
Yeah, certainly. Well, really grateful to be here. And you're exactly right, Danny. You know, in my role in PR and communications, we've heard from journalists that have said just recently, seafood is too big to cover. It's too confusing. It's not my beat. I can't even understand it. So it's hard for them to convey it to consumers. So part of my job is making sure that it is understandable. Right. It is simplified, but not, we're not washing anything down. Seafood is complex. And so we're just trying to make it much more approachable to people.
Really important. Robert?
Yeah, that's totally true in the culinary world as well. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Totally true in the culinary world as well. We face so much misinformation at the consumer level, and even with chefs who face challenges in knowing what to order. We lean too much into the top 10 species, really heavily into top 3 species, and really haven't diversified our menus. And we have some real challenges to really provide accurate information and get people to eat more variety of seafood.
You mentioned chefs, Robert, and I want you both to sort of comment on this because it was really important for all of us to bring chefs into this conversation today. So why would we have chefs here?
Well, first of all, I think from the Culinary Institute of America perspective, we've spent years trying to look at the challenges in the food system and the role that we can play as tastemakers and then therefore change makers. And we've done a great job of pushing a plant-forward diet to more of a personal and planetary healthy diet, but I think we've done a poor job of lifting up blue food in the same way, and that's really the challenge that we're embarking on now. is to show consumers, show chefs, show our alumni the type of blue and aquatic foods that they can put on their menus in order to make seafood an essential pillar to a personal and planetary healthy diet. And so that's the key reason why I'm here today.
Great. And Jackie, chefs are such ambassadors of what MSC is standing for. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one of our ambassadors here today. Really excited about that. But chefs are inspiration to people, to home chefs. And so it's really important for chefs to be able to inspire people to cook seafood at home. So we love working with chefs. Chefs are fantastic ambassadors. They are really good at pushing that message forward about the foods that they can and should be eating at home. So it's such an important sort of partnership for us to be able to work with.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. Most people, their adventure in eating happens in a restaurant, and then they take that home from there. And so it's really the key conduit for us. And I really want to hammer home, we see ourselves as tastemakers, and then we really have to then embrace the power that comes with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you both so much for this collaboration, for this partnership. It means the world to me and to Food Tank and you know, all the work that we're trying to do to advance this issue. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So in this next conversation, we're going to talk about why transparency and traceability are so important to sustainable blue food systems and the lessons that innovations in this space really offers to other sectors. So joining us, we have Jason Berryhill, the CEO of Whole Chain. Give him a round of applause. Charlotte Langley, a chef and the founder of Nice Cans. Give her a round of applause. Adam Brennan is the Chief Sustainability and Communications Officer at Thai Union Group. Give him a round of applause. Hugh Thomas is the Executive Director of the Global Dialogue on Seafood. Round of applause. And moderating this conversation, we have the amazing Deb Becker, a senior reporter at WBUR. Give her a round of applause. Over to you, Deb.
Great, thank you. Wow, thank you all for coming. Good to see so many people here. And I'm really excited about this conversation because I think it's really important. But also, here in Massachusetts, what I read was that the state ranks third nationally in terms of total seafood sales. And Massachusetts residents spend about $314 million a year, I think it's million, dollars a year on seafood. So it's big here. It's a big economic engine. It's very popular. We all know that. But what do we need to do to make sure that we also understand it? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We have a great panel here. And I'd like to start it off with Jason, who can tell us sort of an overview about the state of traceability and transparency. Explain where we are now and what is sort of aspirational.
Yeah. So traceability is something that's been done in the seafood industry for some time. It's certainly not new, but there's a bit of a shift that's happening because it's becoming more digitized. Up to now, traceability, when it's there, it's been more of a manual process. Sometimes traceability might be, a form. It might be a crayon, to be honest. In fact, that's one of the ways lot numbers are commonly expressed in the seafood industry. And what's happening is it's now becoming more of a flow of information. And that flow is opening up new opportunities and new possibilities for companies and also for downstream retailers and brands and ultimately for consumers. They're getting more and more information about their products and more capabilities in terms of what can be done with those raw materials and with the understanding that we have of our sources of food.
And can I just ask a follow-up to that? Yep. So if we get more information, if I get more information about what Jason's doing in terms of his suppliers, his supply chain, how do I know if that's good or bad?
Well, that's the thing. You don't know if it's good or bad if you don't have that information, right? It's only once you get information that can be validated in this process. That's the way. Traceability is one of these really odd areas where even people say like garbage in, garbage out. Traceability, even bad information is good because it's something that can be validated against one way or the other. It's the ability to have more information to set as a benchmark and understand what's coming my direction.
And Adam, I wonder, what do you say about how seafood companies should be dealing with all of this?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's about the unknown becoming the known. Traceability, as Jason was just saying, it's quite fragmented. It's very, very manual based right now. But the reason is the industry has a lot of different traceability systems in place because it enables corporate accountability and it enables due diligence. We spoke earlier on in the opening session about the importance of the ocean, the fishes which are reliant on the health of the oceans, as well as the ecosystem itself. Now that protection cannot be enabled unless you know where your products are coming from, right? And that is why a lot of work has gone into traceability so that it can enable the due diligence to take place. Corporations can then introduce different voluntary initiatives and different programs that can then protect and safeguard those fishes, but then also to make sure that we improve the health of the oceans and the fisheries in which we source from.
What about standards now? What do we know about standards and how this sort of can come together?
Standardization is really important to help level the playing field, to be clear on what's needed. And as Jason said, traceability has been around for a long time and really driven by food safety, who have I bought it from, who have I sold it to, and as Adam said, the provenance and the understanding of the products. Standardization is really important because a lot of data is digitized, but it's not digitized in the same way and it can't actually be shared between different systems. And so as we're getting more digital data and more expectations, we need to provide modules and simple ways of understanding that data and how it should be captured and how it should be presented and then exchanged. And so we're building the standard as it goes.
So how far away do you think we are in terms of really having a better understanding and a clearer picture?
So from a global dialogue point of view, we think we need to get the job done by 2030 simply because seafood supply chains are long, they're complex, and actually from commodity point of view, no other commodity's got quite as far along the digital journey as seafood has got. And so we need to be realistic, we need to educate an industry, we need to align regulators, and then we need to bring everybody on a journey and understand what our barriers are and create tools and resources to help them on that. So 2030 is our target.
2030. Charlotte, you're a chef. Tell us.
That's right.
Among
other things.
Among other things. Tell us what chefs can do in all of this. How can you help with traceability in your position?
What I find actually very interesting is in this panel is I speak to a very different level of consumer when it comes to the transparency supply chain, because I speak to the consumers directly as a chef. My role is to inspire and encourage people to try something different, feel more confident, make different decisions about how they choose their products, whether it be a finished good or a raw material. And I find that chefs often have this fun opportunity to lead change in consumer behavior. We have a lot of FaceTime. We're out there. We're talking directly to all of you. And for me, the transparent supply chain and the sustainability that go hand in hand, because consumers want both sustainability and transparency. They want it both, and they want it at an affordable price. It's our job to direct them in the right direction and introduce them to some certification standards like the MSC, for example, to transparent supply chain models that you guys are building, and get them excited about making those decisions. Because the thing that I've found lately, I'm not sure about you guys feel, is that seafood has never really been sexy, right? So looking at brands, how they're modernizing, looking at their new packaging, my brand included, we're trying to re-engage the consumer to be inspired and excited about coming into the seafood space. To Jackie's note earlier, there's a lot going on, right? How do we sort of clarify the path and get them to help make those good decisions along the supply chain?
Is this a big change, though, and asking consumers to pay more and, expecting they will, because it will be more expensive?
Well, I think
presumably.
It's redefining the value. For a long time, we've looked at the value of some things as very low because there's combinations of how things are harvested, caught, not necessarily in the most kind way for how people are being treated in that space, and it drives prices down. But when it comes to reevaluating the value of food, putting the proper value, and looking who is all along the supply chain that you really need to work with, I have to say, as a small business operator, brokers and distributors, I understand why they exist in the mix, but guess what? They get one of the biggest pieces of the pie, and I'm trying to pay my fishers and my processors, my partners that are helping me build my company more fairly. So how do we get creative in finding solutions to readjust the value of that dollar?
And how do you make sense of the information when it comes to you as a chef, when you're looking at it? How do you make decisions based on what you're going to focus on or feature, you know?
Well, I start with the sustainability messaging first. I'll give you an example. I work with a company called José Gourmet. They're out of Portugal. I know you know who I'm talking about. And I asked them to become MSC certified. I said, I need you guys to become MSC certified to work with me. I'm the ambassador to Canada. It's important that this standard is in place. And at first, they didn't understand the value, right? They're like, why? Then I showed them the value. I said, listen, it's coming from the top down from, Whole Foods or whoever. Their shareholders who have their ESG development goals in place. It's MSC certified or it's not, or you're not getting on shelf. From there, they got certified. And then all of a sudden, the port's like, why are you guys getting certified? The port got certified. It was June of last year, I think 2025. There's 16 fisheries, if you please clarify, 16 and 21 sardine fisheries all became recertified again. So they haven't been that way since 2016. It shows that the supply chain is demanding sustainability, traceability, value, and we're looking to produce that and supply that. So I start there.
Jason, you were going to jump in.
Well, I just wanted to say I wouldn't necessarily associate initiatives like traceability with higher cost. In general, when you have more data in a situation, you find more opportunities to have more efficiency. You can look at things like yields, you can look at things like time temperature, you can look at so many different elements. Traceability is not just about where did it come from. That is one piece, because if you don't know that piece, then obviously you really can't begin your work. But once you know that, and once you can track the various levels in the supply chain, having more data allows for greater use of that data for efficiency. And I will say, in many cases, it can actually lower costs. And the costs of the systems themselves are fractions of a penny a pound when you really break it down. So I wouldn't necessarily associate those two together.
I was just wondering if it could be more expensive for certain items for small business people to make sure that your goods are produced in a way that are, that fit in with transparency.
There's lots of different levers to pull on all different sides of business at this point, in my experience so far. It's just finding the right fit.
What role does regulation have here? I wonder who would like to take that up. I mean, I just wonder where are we in terms of regulating this to make sure that we have traceability and transparency standards?
GDST is a partnership organisation primarily targeted to the seafood industry. The actors from the fishers and the farmers right the way through to the integrated processors such as Thai Union. Initially, we weren't focused on governments, but governments are looking at digitisation. They're looking at how they can get their arms around the data to inform fisheries management, supply chain risk, look at resilience, community, being able to help secure access rights to small-scale fishers and farmers. And so governments have come and said, actually, the standard you're creating can help us to also get the data that we need as well. And so we're seeing complementary work with governments around the world, and the Food and Agriculture Organization actually adopted the sort of basic elements that we're doing quite early on, even before the seafood industry did. So governments are critically important because they will institutionalize it for the industry.
And so what's the challenge then, do you think? What's the biggest challenge to being able to reach your goal by 2030?
The biggest challenge really is, as you know, we've talked about cost. First movers, there is a cost, inevitably. We don't necessarily always know the journey that we need, so we're going to make mistakes, and that does cost money. There are new solutions that are being developed where there's a market demand, things come, competition will reduce cost. And so part of the reason we're saying 2030 is there are businesses that can afford to make that investment today, and there are some businesses that say, I see the vision, but we really can't afford it. So we have to also give the seafood industry to understand it, to adopt it, to demand it, and transition it through. And so cost is part of it, but time also to allow businesses to say, all right, this is what's being asked of me, and I have time. The shorter the time you demand it, the more it costs. I'm sure Adam will correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way we view traceability is, it's licensed to operate, for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And, Thai Union were often, one of those front movers. And I think that's where regulatory, really comes into play, because it helps level the playing field. Thai Union go first. We often pay a premium that we have to absorb. But we do that because, we want to protect the health of the oceans. And if you think about it from our perspective, tuna and the likes are a natural raw material, right? And we have to protect those fisheries, and we have to make sure that they are harvested sustainably. So, again, traceability is fundamental to all of that. So yes, there is a cost, and it is quite significant, but it's something that we internalize, because if you want to operate in this space, that's really what it takes.
One of the more significant regulations upcoming that is related to traceability is the U.S. FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act, Rule 204, which goes into effect in July of 2028. That is basically mandating certain elements of traceability back to farm or boat for high-risk food categories like seafood, leafy greens, nut butters, and many food categories, but seafood has definitely that's been in the mind of many people in the seafood industry. That has been a mover of the seafood industry. But when you think about the benefits of that, the FDA is looking to target from a process that can take 35 days for a recall down to 5 days for a recall, through a more digitized process and through more ability to track back with more immediacy. That has a big impact on consumers. That has a big impact on all of us, on both healthcare costs, on so many different things that it can impact. And in fact, they did an analysis of this that is a net saver of we as a society for having that regulation in place, even though there are costs associated. And so there are these drivers that are happening, to Hugh's point as well, just within the coming years that are really going to move this along in positive ways.
Is there an example, Jason, that you can think of that of a company that many of us might know that you've worked with and that has taken this on, and what the results have been? Briefly, I know I don't know that.
Well, Adam from Thai Union. Thai Union, many people would know a lot of their consumer brands like Chicken of the Sea in different markets. And so, honestly, I'd kind of defer to him to speak more about this as well, not to...
Yeah, I think at an industry level, there's a lot of commitment towards traceability. And so the gap is not intent. The gap is really on execution. And actually tomorrow we're going to be announcing, a new initiative to tackle all of those bottlenecks that we've spoken about on this panel. And that is, replacing those manual systems, being digital, being interoperable, right? There are so many requests right now for traceability. It's important to standardize against organizations like the GDST, so that it is in an understandable format and it can be communicated to our consumers, the consumers of our brands, who are also looking for assurance that the product is coming from a certified source and that they are getting the right level of visibility. And I'm sure, going back to your consumers as well, and diners and restaurants, they are also looking for that assurance and that level of visibility.
Yeah, and if I don't mind, I'm going to add something to this, because I'm an SME, so I'm not as juicy and big as you guys. But when it comes to you're taking the first step towards building this traceability towards 2030, which is amazing. There's a piece that's missing for my category, which is subsidization or support too, because I also want to be part of that traceability story and use those same resources and tools. I may not have the same sort of funding that you guys do. So there has to be a solution that's fit to invest in the future of Blue Foods. That's not just from the top down. I want to be there with you guys, building these systems, not just being like, we've done it first, here's the package, because we're trying to shift that as well at the same time, just from a different landscape. So that's something that I've been chatting about a lot with people, is how do we fund the future of the blue economy beyond just large corporations, but who is the private sector coming in? Where's the government subsidies? Who else is getting involved in the story with us?
If I may, just one quick thing on that. I'm going to actually lead into something Hugh might bring up. But the thing about standardization is it generally brings the cost of systems down. The ultimate example of standardization that we use every day is email. Email is a data standard, and it allows two different systems to talk. So we don't all have to use Gmail. If we did, the price of Gmail would go up. But because there's a standard out there for email, you can use Hotmail, I can use Gmail, you can use whatever, Outlook, whatever you want to use. And at the end of the day, when's the last time you paid for email? What we're going to see with more and more standardization around traceability is costs go down. Our cheapest plan now is free, right? Costs will go down for these things because of this. This is why we need more standardization.
Okay, last 20 seconds, Hugh.
Yeah, I was just going to say, small scale and first mile is critically important to the GDST partners. It's probably the thing I'm told most often. Hugh, do not leave small scale and first mile behind, and do not demand digitization today on everybody. It's a journey, and we are on a journey.
All right, well, that was a perfect ending. Thank you all very much. That was terrific. I know it was short, but thank you all. Thank you.
Hey, y'all, keep that round of applause going. That was great. Thanks to Deb for getting us started. That was wonderful. So at Food Tank, it's always been a priority for us to put farmers' voices first. We've done that in multiple ways in our articles, on our podcast, in everything that we write and do, the research we do on the ground. Most recently, we've taken this farmer-centered approach even further, inviting producers from Utah, from Texas, from New York, Australia, Ireland, and beyond to take the stage and share their stories in their own words from their own perspectives. And I'm excited today that we're bringing that model to the blue food sector. So I'm really, really excited to introduce someone I've admired for a long time, and that's Imani Black, the founder and CEO of Minorities in Aquaculture. Please give her a huge round of applause as she takes the stage.
Hi, hello. Oh my God. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Food Tank, for having me here today. It's nice to see a lot of your familiar faces. So thank you guys for coming out. For those of you who don't know me, like I said, or like Danny said, my name is Imani Black. Mostly known for being the founder and CEO of a nonprofit called Minorities in Aquaculture. But also, I didn't start out that way. I've been in the industry for around 10 years. I started off as an oyster farmer, right? So the other stuff came later. So when Bernie asked me to do this and Food Tank asked me to do this, I was a little reluctant, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't want to come up and stand here and sort of tell a story. I also was like, what the hell could I say to all of these really amazing people in here that would be even remotely, able to be taken back home? Like you guys, some of you guys I've worked with and had the privilege of collaborating with and that I truly admire. And so I was like, what could I even say? So a few days later, after Bernie asked me, I told him I would circle back with him. I wasn't confirming yet, but I would circle back with him. And a few days later, my friend called me, who I had known since high school, and she is starting an environmental nonprofit in Arizona, working with trout in Sedona. And she was like, we spent a lot of time on the phone, and she was asking me, all the things, and she was telling me all the things about how she got started with her, like getting to start the organization and all this good stuff. But the one thing that she was really excited about was this new partnership. She was like, oh my God, Imani, this could really just change the first 5 years of our organization. This could really like put us on the map. And naturally, I'm excited. I'm like, go girl. Like anytime you need me, I'm only a phone call away. I wasn't expecting to hear from her 2 days later because I get a text and it says, I need to talk to you. I said, okay. So I get on the phone and she says, she's like visibly upset, like just really crying. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, well, my partnership that I told you about, fell through. It completely fell through. They completely did a 180. And I was like, okay, all right. And so we were talking and she asked me, so how do you like deal with this every time? I'm exhausted. This takes some emotional toll, a mental toll, all the things. And so with all of your accolades, it seems like you have it all together. And so how do you do it? And you see how I just laughed just then. And I laughed in that conversation, not at her and not at the question, but realizing that we were in two separate stages, right? In the beginning, right, you're like, oh, all the awards, that means I've made it. 6 years in, I'm like, that could be further from the truth, honestly. I could get all those awards and still feel like I'm not doing everything I need to do. And so, I really kind of told her, I was like, I would take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I Googled how to start a nonprofit, so I'm not the one to kind of give advice on that. And for the people who don't know me, that sounds a little chaotic. I am chaotic, but I didn't start out that way. But I, started off as an oyster farmer, and in 2020, my life just completely changed, did a complete 180. I was asked to come back to grad school, which was not on my bingo card list at all, and to start Minorities in Aquaculture. I'd been a female oyster farmer, and all the things that I had went through, I really wish I had had that resource. And so now Minorities in Aquaculture, we really focus on the workforce development side of aquaculture. And a lot of the things that I went through, I bring into the program. And so when you're doing something like that, though, you don't really know that it's going to kick off. You don't really know that it's going to be successful. And so when I was talking to her, I was like, look, like, it's okay to be upset about that, but I just want to let you know, like, you're at this really crazy part called the messy middle. It's right in the in-between that people don't really talk to you about, that I wish that someone had told me, that after things start to become successful, everything changes. I mean, your responsibility changes, your view on everything changes, your emotional capacity changes, right? And so you'd have to kind of sit in this. It's okay to be upset, but also it's okay to kind of harness that, right? Harness that hard. Harness that you have 15,000 tabs open on your computer because you were supposed to circle back on Friday. Same thing with emails. You're on Monday morning, you see 250 emails plus the 50 that you forgot to do on Friday. You know, grant proposals, writing them for months and months and months just to get told no. All of the things, right? And you still can feel like in all of that you're not doing enough. And so I told her, I was like, yeah, it just is a part of it. And you have to just sort of always be okay with coming to terms with, am I doing enough, and what the hell did I get myself into, right? When you start something, you're like, I didn't know it was going to be all this, guys. And so that's how I'm like on this stage today, right? I'm 2 coffees deep. I probably need another one before I get, we end the night. But I'm trying to embrace the messy middle. And with all the accolades are great, and I love all the congratulations. A lot of people in this room have been supporters of me from the beginning. But I want us to like be okay to say, this shit is hard, guys. It's really hard. Give it up for yourself. This stuff is really hard. And the women and the people that I'm talking to, they understand that too. So I'm super excited to be in that conversation. But for everyone who's starting something or has been starting something, no matter how long you've been, you're in the messy middle. And it takes crazy people like us to get through the messy middle to actually do something that matters. So keep doing something that matters, all right? All right, thank you guys.
Woo! Thank you, Imani. You can sit down with me. Take a seat. Yeah. What the hell did I get myself into is a question I ask myself every day, my friend. And this shit is hard. Oh, I'm so excited for our next panel, a conversation about diversifying blue food systems. Joining us, we have Citlali Gomez Lepe, who is the CEO of the Mexican Council for the Promotion of Wild and Aquaculture Seafood. Alicia Gallero is the owner of Naughty Sisters Sea Farm, and Niaz Dory is the coordinating director for the Northwest Atlantic Marine Alliance. Please give them a round of applause. I love this group of kick-ass women. Thank you for being here. Niaz, I'm going to start with you, and you know how I feel about you. I've really admired you for a very long time. Thank you for your work. Thank you. In 2013, you wrote something that really stood out to me, and you said that the language of today's marine conservation movement is not written with racial equity and food justice in mind. Over the past decade, I'm wondering how you have seen efforts to address equity and justice in this space. Are we making enough progress?
Not to be self-centered, but our name has changed to North American Marine Alliance. Just folks know we've kind of grown into a continental role. And that's important to note because one of the things that we've been thinking about a lot is how do we truly diversify the fishing sector and address issues of food sovereignty, food security, racial equity. We kind of got to grapple with the colonial history of this country and this continent, this entire part of the world, not only from a historical perspective, but also as it's happening still today. Indigenous folks were the first to experience the lack of access to resources such as seafood. The very sexy schooners we see in the town I live in Gloucester were the first form of colonization of the fishing sector. And I tell my friends that the next time you see me arrested, it's me going over and changing the sign that says, as you enter Gloucester, America's oldest fishing port, where it's really actually America's oldest colonized fishing port. So that's a really important piece for us to keep in mind. We're still not seeing the kind of diversity that we need to see in the seafood sector, because those who don't represent sort of the Yankee white folks are not getting access to resources. A friend of mine, an EAC person from Alaska, his name is Dune Lankert, some of you may know him. He said when it comes to kelp farming, that's the new land grab. And that the first group of people who should be getting access to that are actually indigenous people, because the leases are not going to indigenous people. And he actually paused and said, actually, women first, indigenous people next. And that's a really important piece for me to keep in mind. Our board president is one of the two people of color, fishing people of color in Rhode Island. And I know Kate is here, she works with them. We have Buck Jones over there from the Columbia River working with tribes that are capturing the salmon we all love. And so I'm glad to see folks here talking about diversity in the seafood system that represent the farming sector of the seafood system. But we still have a major part of our seafood system that's wild capture that's not represented here at all. And those are the folks that we work with, about 400 and some odd thousand people who are mostly engaged in wild capture fisheries. Majority of them are still white, but we're seeing inch by inch, little by little, the faces change, the colors change, the cultures change, and it's really up to the rest of us to demand that change happening throughout the seafood chain. It's slow, but it's coming along.
Thank you so much, Niazi. It's such an important point to make, and Amani, I want to turn to you. Niaz said that, we're people of color and women are not getting the resources they need. What will it take to build a sustainable career pipeline in the aquaculture industry, especially for women of color? What's needed? What are the steps? Because I feel like we're just not making them as much as we should be.
I think in general, with workforce development, it's the opportunities, right? It's having the schools that are, teaching aquaculture. It's the certifications. U.S. Aquaculture is coming out right now with a joint certification as far as aquaculture training. I think in general, it's, wanting people to be educated enough about our industry to want to get into it. I don't think that there's enough opportunities for that, but also for the real stuff of it, right? Like, it looks pretty on Instagram and social media right now to be an oyster farmer, but we all know that it's not. And I think that people are starting to get into it because of the hype of it, and then not really realizing all the things that our oyster farmers and our fishermen and our watermen really go through on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's really bringing people in for that hands-on training, but also sort of really making a pathways, right? Not just being out on the farm, but in marketing, communications, welding, bring trade schools back. I don't know who said trade schools weren't the it thing, but they're the it thing, and that's what we need in this industry today. So, I mean, yeah, I could focus on just women of color, but I think it's really the workforce, the next generation of workforce development that is really lacking right now.
And do you see there is a movement to bring those trade schools back to really help propel this forward?
Yeah, there is, but I mean, we have to be intentional about it, right? Like, I just took an outboard engines class just at my local community college because I was like, I have time and I can't sit still. And I'm on boats all the time and I wanted to learn more. I learned that I thought I knew 5%, I maybe know 2% of an outboard engine. But I wish that the class was a little bit more hands-on, right? It was very textbook, which is great, but that's not how I learn. And so now I'm having to, luckily I have people in my life that do know about engines, and so I can go to them with the little bit of knowledge and go forward, but a lot of people don't have that. And so we have to be intentional about what we're building for people to learn, and not just make it a textbook thing, but make it a hands-on thing.
Absolutely, yes.
There is an organization in Rhode Island, the African Alliance of Rhode Island, actually just got a grant for workforce development. We've been working with them for a few years, and they're very intentionally wanting to make sure that seafood is included and fisheries is included in that workforce development project.
I want to applaud Amani and the work that she has done to bring a lot of women and people of color into the space, because we've been fortunate to work together from the beginning of minorities in aquaculture, really. But speaking from Maine, we're kind of unique in this space, as aquaculture is one of the identified sectors that Maine has been working to invest in. So we actually have the first pre-apprentice and apprenticeship programs of its kind. and they're implementing a lot of coursework, particularly in Washington County Community College, but to increase like education in aquaculture. But I think what we're missing in Maine is, to be honest, I just had an internship single position with over 50 applications. So that's demonstrating that people are interested and want to enter the industry. But what we can't provide is, for many of these people, is long-term sustainable incomes. The farms are not yet at a scale to support the level of interest that we're starting to get. And so that's a big component of the conversation. How do we take this interest and also have economically viable businesses so that we can actually support that next phase of interest? In Maine, aquaculture is actually one of the only industries where the median age is going down. So we are funding those programs and creating opportunity, but we need to support farms and companies into the next phase of growth so that we can come to a scale where we can better support them.
Alicia, yeah, absolutely. Alicia, on that point, where does ecotourism and, sort of aquaculture and, fish tourism play into all of that?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I started our farm in 2020, and in 2024 dipped my toes into offering tours to our oyster farm. Last year was like the first year of really doing that, and it's grown immensely. In part, this was of interest because of our challenges to grow to be a larger scale oyster producer. We exist in a really expensive community. We're close to the Portland area in Maine, and there's an opportunity. And what we've really seen is there's an immense amount of interest. Now I joke that I'm a tourism company growing shellfish, but people really want to be connected to their food, and they're looking for experiential tourism opportunities. So they want to feel connected to place. And working waterfronts are really place-driven, and you can't have like a community without supporters. And so we find that we're helping to grow connections one by one in these small tours of groups of 1 to 46 people at a time, through bringing them out on the water, teaching them not just about shellfish, but also other fisheries in Maine and how they work, and interacting with them, and showing them through the process of what we do.
And doing a lot of that myth busting that is so essential to getting people more interested in eating seafood, which is what this is all about. We want people to eat seafood.
Yeah, you would be surprised how many people come on our farms and have never tried shellfish, which scares me sometimes because I don't want to have them have an allergic reaction or something. But people, we don't drive past oyster farms in the way we drive past a dairy farm. And so there's not a connection to whose equipment is that and who's working on the water. And it's, we're really unique as well because our team is predominantly, almost exclusively women, female licensed captains, female teammates, and we're non-discriminatory. We just get a lot of female applicants. But we're also opening this door of what that could look like and what representation can be in this space. But yeah, we want to demystify the food system. Yeah. So how do we do that? We're talking about all the other things that we grow and that are available in seafood, and talking about scale. And there's all these big questions about industrialization of the water, and be it with salmon farming or other production in Asia. And while acknowledging that we are a small farm, that maybe that isn't representative of what we need to either feed the world, feed our communities, and support business and create long livelihoods in this space. So while we're showing them a really micro scale of production, we're talking about what does this need to look like to actually be successful and sustainable.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I want to zoom out for a moment and think about the broader food system. And Satali, you recently told me that in Mexico there was a real need for movement around responsible and sustainable seafood consumption, something that your family has helped lead. And I'm wondering if you can just give us a snapshot of what you've been doing.
Well, I'm a trout farmer for third generation. My mom and my grandfather began this farm in the last century, at the end of the last century. It was like, what are you, crazy? Because nobody understood why we went to the mountains to live in the middle of nowhere, literally. 30-something years ago. So we began talking to the chefs with the slow food movement 20-something years ago, to ask them to buy our trout, because it was please buy our trout. What is that? What is aquaculture? 20, 30 years ago, nobody was talking about that. So when I got into the Come Pesca organization, we're an industry-based NGO, chefs have became more aware about what is seafood. So even though we're more than 40 companies that are pushing for the sustainable seafood movement through the responsible consumption of sustainable seafood. So that's what we're trying to position in the mindset of decision makers in Mexico and with chefs.
So important. When we last spoke, one of the things that stood out to me is that how important it is to talk about the connection between terrestrial and blue food systems. And you talked about a way to connect them that I found was really interesting. Do you want to share that?
Well, it's just about the feeling of if you know what you're producing, if the people go. I was listening to you too about these tours where there is any production or fishery, it's pretty. All the aquaculture is sexy, and so are fisheries. It's not like a lot of acres of tomatoes. It's like that's boring. but fisheries and agriculture is super sexy. We have to sell that too. I mean to show that, and that's important. And the feeling of doing what you do and understanding that the people need to feel proud of their activity is something that has moved all us, and it's really important to make the farmer and the fishermen proud of what they do. Is really what has made this movement grow in Mexico and some countries in Latin America.
Yeah, recognizing that farmers and fishers both need to be respected. Niaz.
I've spent the last 8 years working with both farmers and fishermen, so I completely understand what you mean. And something you've just said really sparked a thought in my head, that diversity is also about, I think the chef said earlier, what we eat. How many different kinds of seafood we eat. The reason that those fields of tomatoes that you're talking about probably don't look sexy is because it's acre after acre and after acre of just tomatoes. Or you go to the Midwest and you see corn and beans, corn and beans, corn and beans. That's all it is. I was driving through there a few years ago, and all I can think of was corn and beans, shrimp and salmon, corn and beans, shrimp and salmon, because we are so hyper-focused on a few things and the kind of diversification that we need. We also don't need to see miles and miles of cages in the ocean either. We need to diversify on such a fundamental level, the way we look at the ocean. And just like with the farmers that we've been working with, trying to diversify the land food system, we need to learn from them and try to diversify the seafood system in a similar way so that we can value what folks here in Boston, some of our partners with the Sustainable Business Network have talked about, the fruits of the ocean. How do we honor what it gives us as opposed to demanding that it gives us the same uniform thing year after year after year and day after day? The kind of consolidation, privatization, and corporate takeover we're seeing in the ocean is actually leading to that fence row to fence row approach to fisheries, whether aquaculture or wild capture. And that's a kind of diversification that we need to push for, as well as who is showing up on these panels.
Absolutely, yes. Diversity of people, of ideas, of species, of practices. This all needs to happen. Where are you seeing the action to do this the most? Where is that happening?
Well, we just had I forget how many, we've had the local catch summit that just happened in Mobile, Alabama, representing new fishing, not new so much, but fishing businesses that are trying to do things differently. Imani, you were there with us, as was Buck, as I mentioned, as was Kate, actually, some of the folks in this audience. The local catch network started with a seed of a few community-supported fisheries. And the idea of community-supported fisheries was stolen from community-supported agriculture. And we also knew that community-supported agriculture is sort of tailored for those who have other choices and a lot of means. But it was a way to spark the idea in people's minds that in the same way that you care about your chickens and your pigs and your lettuce and your tomatoes is the way you should be caring about your cod and your haddock and your shrimp and salmon. And so the community-supported fisheries has grown now into what we call values-based seafood businesses, whether they're direct sale through a community-supported fishery or even institutional purchasing through our partners like Healthcare Without Harm and others that are trying to do this. So these seeds have been planted, and we're seeing this diversification happen. We were talking about how we'd like to see more people who look different at the next local catch summit. How do we make sure that diversification happens within those businesses? But the kind of businesses that are growing from fishing communities, whether wild capture or aquaculture, are bringing these values, and they're staying true to them and aspiring to be as truthful to them as possible, but they're trying to undo hundreds of years of damage. So if we can't be patient with them and give them some space and give them some grace to do things right over a span of time, then we're going to rush something, and we're just going to keep creating tomorrow's problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else want to comment on that before we move on? So we have a few seconds left, and I really think it's important for this panel in particular to leave this audience with a to-do, a call to action. What do you want them to do with this information? Nias, can I start with you?
Sure. Eat fish that looks like fish. Eat fish that's closest to you as possible. Ask questions. It's okay to reject something if the answer that you're given isn't the one you wanted to hear. And again, take that value. If you've cared about where your chicken and your pigs and your lettuce and tomato comes from, bring that same discerning mentality to your seafood system. Support minority businesses, support indigenous communities that are trying to retake back their land, and there is land under that water column. And so when Dune says this is the modern day land grab, he's not lying. It is land grab. So support those indigenous fishing communities. If you want to eat salmon, support the wild capture salmon fisheries that are run by indigenous people in the Pacific Northwest and the Columbia River. So again, eat fish that looks like fish, and be true to your values regardless of whether you're applying it to your land food or your seafood system, and support policies that stop privatization and corporate takeover of our ocean.
Great advice. Alicia?
I would guess the call to action in this moment would be what I've learned through the tours is that the intensity of and value in storytelling. And so storytelling is a part of our infrastructure. And so you can take what you've learned today and in your other experiences, and it's person of person that we make like the greatest change and transition in how people think about what we eat and what we do. And so being empowered to like learn more about where your food comes from, who's working in your area, be engaged in your communities, be it in the regulatory process or other things, because that is how we overcome some of these challenges that we have, be it growing farms to scale, having more diversity in the field, and then also getting people to eat more diverse types of food, particularly in seafood. But it's all like within us. I think the most intimate conversations carry the most value. So
absolutely. Amani.
Well, can you hear me? Both of them took mine. So I would say I'm going to piggyback off of what Chef Charlotte said in her panel. If we want diversity to stick around and we want, small-scale aquaculture to stick around, us as an industry has to support them. So it has to come from the top down. We can't do it without you guys. I can't do the work without people that support me that are, have, a bigger platform or have bigger, resources. And neither can a lot of our fishermen and oyster farmers and just aquaculturists in general. So keep supporting them, keep finding ways that you can partner with them so that we don't have them fall to the wayside, because that's really where kind of the crux is all the way from the top to the bottom.
Absolutely.
I would talk finally about the consumer. I think all of us want to make this a better world. And if you pick the right choice of what you eat, you are not only nourishing like yourself, your body, but your soul. And I think that is something very important to put into the conversation with the organic movement and the sustainable movement. And we're part of all. It's not only fish or cattle or whatever. It's like we're part of a big movement, and we have to take responsibility. And the people that when they pick anything that they're gonna consume, it's like energetically and what nourishes. And that is a very important thing, like to transmit to all.
It is so important to remember. Please give these panelists a round of applause. That was wonderful. Thank you all so much. In our next conversation, we're going to talk about the role that retailers play in building better blue food systems. So joining us, we have Daisy Berg, the Program and Category Manager of Seafood at New Seasons Market. Please give Daisy a round of applause. Kelly Havaski, the Senior Director of Impact and Strategic Initiatives for ButcherBox. Please give her a round of applause. And Stephen Jennings, the Health Partnerships and Stakeholder Engagement Lead for Ahold Delhaize USA. Thank you all for joining us. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
So Stephen, I'm going to start with you. What role can Blue Foods play as retailers work to expand healthy options for eaters?
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you hear? Hi. So I'm with Ahold Delhaize USA. Does anybody know who we are by chance? Yes, 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 yes. Well, if you do not, so we're part of a large East Coast grocery family. So we have brands that most likely you know, and if you're local here, you'll definitely know some of them. So Giant Food, which is down in the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia area. Giant Company, which is based out of Pennsylvania. Food Line, which is like everywhere. They're a large part of our fleets. And locally, Stop and Shop. I'm sure people know who Stop and Shop is, and Hereford Markets. So one of the things, and I probably should be full disclosure, and I was going to save this for the end, but I might as well just get the hatred out right now, is that I don't eat seafood. I'm sorry, I don't. So I am coming this... Okay. I am coming at this from a health and nutrition kind of angle and the business value that it brings. And guess what? Our customers do love seafood, especially local seafood. So one of the things that we really focus on is fresh, nutritious offerings. And I would even lump frozen in there too. We have some really good frozen, nutritious options as well.
Right on.
And who? Yes, sure. So if you've shopped any of our stores, you know that we use a nutrition guidance system called Guiding Stars. So anywhere in our store, you can shop for better for you products that meet a standard, nutritional density standard, a good, better, best rating. And guess what? In seafood, we have a plethora of options. And we all know what the hot topic is right now, which is everyone wants protein, protein, protein. And why not make the best single ingredient nutritious decision and choose seafood, right? So with that being said, we are hyper-focused on directing our customers by choice towards the seafood department for those great nutritious options. So that's the angle I'm bringing into this one.
Great. Kelly, on that point, on the health point, you recently mentioned that ButcherBox has been testing the nutrient density of its products. And I wonder what you're learning and how you translate that to the consumer so that they make different kinds of choices.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. So really quickly, for those who aren't from this area, I think probably most of the Bostonians know what ButcherBox is, but ButcherBox is typically, I have to change up my kind of words these days because we used to be direct to consumer. We're primarily direct to consumer for seafood, but we recently launched in Target for our grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And in Costco in the Pacific Northwest. But getting back to seafood, which is only through our direct-to-consumer model, I'm really excited that we partnered with another Massachusetts-based business, Audacious, which is doing nutrient density testing on a variety of products. But for us, all of our products, we've been around for 10 years. We always we've set high standards for the proteins that we bring to our customers' plates. And this testing has really helped us demonstrate that there's actual data. Harkening back to the whole chain conversation, we now have data to show our customers that the intentional sourcing and the really thoughtful practices of either our land-based proteins or our blue food systems are actually deriving healthier products. And the most exciting piece to share with this group is that we tested both our wild-caught Alaskan salmon and our responsibly farmed ASC certified salmon. And the takeaway for me is that they're both excellent options for your health and for the environment. they both have, I think it's at least 8 and 9 rich or good sources of many B vitamins, the selenium, phosphorus. The one kind of notable takeaway for me was that I'm always eating wild-caught salmon in the winter, because our wild-caught salmon on average had 125% of your daily value. So in the winter, I think that's the protein to eat. But aside from that, the other takeaway was really the insane omega-6 to 3 ratio. Both products were incredible. The wild-caught was averaging at 0.1 to 1, and the farmed was 1 to 1.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing all that. As we talk about the health benefits, Daisy, how can we help retailers guide eaters toward options that are not only good for their health, so important, obviously, but are also better for the planet? And, what are some of the success stories you're seeing on combining those two fronts?
So, for those that don't know me, I'm Daisy Berg. I am from the Pacific Northwest, Portland, Oregon. We have New Seasons Market, 22 locations in Portland, Oregon. I run the seafood category for the brand. And so there have been some great success stories as far as pulling forward the information about nutrition. I used to say that it was all about education of our staff. Labor has changed immensely in the last 5 years, and so me relying on staff to have individual conversations with the customers that are coming in is starting to fall behind. So I need to rely on different ways to get that information out to the consumer. One is that our program is 100% sustainable as far as environment goes. Our customers trust us for that, and so everything that is out on our floors for sale in seafood has already passed that bar. It's already been vetted for nutrition, for sustainability, and now we're going into really looking deeply at our social responsibility as well. I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I can remind you. That's what I'm here for. It's my job.
I looked that way.
So, as we're talking about, the health benefits, the environmental benefits, how do you sort of combine those both to help consumers make choices that, support both of those and make it successful on both fronts?
Right. Okay. Thank you. So essentially there is not a wrong choice in seafood. All of the seafood is very healthy for you. There is, as long as you're not eating the same thing every single day. There's been a lot of talk up here on the stage today about diversifying, diversity, and that was all about the workers within the community. Well, I'm asking you to diversify what you're eating. Don't eat salmon every single day. Sure, eat salmon. That's fine. But for your next meal, please try something else. It's very important. I think that one of the panelists from the last group was talking about try to find something within your local waters that maybe you haven't tried before. For us, many years ago, it was our local rockfish. People were only eating wild salmon, and so to put local rockfish on their plate was a kind of a big ask. But it's one of our biggest fisheries and most sustainable fisheries. And now that's one of our high consumption items. We're moving over to sable fish now. That is a really plentiful, beautiful, can be an expensive fish and really hold that value for consumers. But again, there is not a bad choice for nutrition in any of the seafood, as long as you're diversifying. So some people will talk about mercury as being an issue, and it's kind of an old conversation, and I even hate to bring it up, but it still comes up every now and then. And as long as you're not eating that giant swordfish 4 times a day, and you don't have a problem with mercury to begin with, you are fine with eating mercury. Even your children are okay to eat a little bit of that fish that has mercury in it. It's okay, because there are other really good benefits beyond that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Kelly, I want to come back to you and talk about the work Butcher Box is doing in Bristol Bay. Expand on that a little bit more, because it's so interesting.
Yeah, so I think most of our seafood story started in Bristol Bay. And the interesting piece of the story is not just that we're sourcing from the Bristol Bay and working with producers who have been there for generations, but also that we really followed the lead of one of our seafood suppliers who said, we need your help as someone who has the ability to speak directly to your customers to actually talk about what's going on and protect Bristol Bay from a lot of mining activity in Pebble Mine. And so we dipped our toes into that, I would say probably 4 years ago, and really need to continue. I guess we dipped our toes into it by first giving money to some of the foundations and nonprofits that are leading the work there. And then we started realizing that we could be doing more by actually talking to our consumers on social media. And I think that's one thing that I really believe is the power of direct to consumer. And it was brought up earlier on the last panel, just really using your brand and your voice to storytell, to uplift the people who are doing amazing work and also protect the livelihoods there, because the story of how the salmon run has grown in Bristol Bay is just incredible. And I think that that's really, as a direct-to-consumer marketer, that's our job.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen, switching gears a little bit, I want you to talk about how Hildelays has been involved in working on a shrimp decarbonization project and what that's meant to the retailer and how's it going?
Great question. So, has anyone ever heard of shrimp decarbonization? I didn't. So in 2024, we partnered, actually, Adam, if he's still here, from Thai Union Group and the Nature Conservancy on a shrimp decarbonization initiative. So one is like, well, why shrimp? Well, as most know in the sustainability space, food is one of the leading contributors to Scope 3 emissions and our greenhouse gas emissions. And you got to tackle every single commodity, and that includes something as small as shrimp. So what we've done is we've partnered with, again, Thai Union Group and the Nature Conservancy on producing 1,000 metric tons of shrimp through the entire value chain. So from hatchery to shipment, tracing it back to that and tracking the reduction of those greenhouse gas emissions. Our two of our brands, so Hannaford up here in New England and Food Lion, are currently purchasing that shrimp from the pilot that's going on right now. And obviously the goal would be that we could scale that, take the learnings from this particular pilot and hopefully be able to scale that to all of our brands. And you got to start somewhere. So in order to make change, you got to start somewhere, even with the little baby shrimp. So one of the things that we have to do, because I mentioned we're talking about health, but we're actually health and sustainability. So in our organization, we combine both efforts. And we need to prove those to meet our targets for Scope 3 emissions reduction, which, as you all know, is going to take from now until who knows when to start showing those reductions. So you got to start today. And each little commodity at a time is going to help us to get to those goals that we've set publicly as well. But we have to show business value because we're a retailer. We're not a nonprofit. So we have to, everything can't always be a cost. So through these types of pilots and initiatives with our partners, we look to prove that the economics around it so that we can scale to show the savings there.
Thank you for that. I
Go
think
shrimp.
that makes a lot of sense. No, and I mean, Daisy's been working on shrimp with producers as well. And you're looking at it from the environment angle and making sure that shrimp producers are doing, the right thing, the best thing that they can do. Can you talk about what that looks like?
Yeah. So it looks like a couple of things. And mostly what I'm going to talk about right now is about imported farmed shrimp. The shrimp that most of us consume are imported and farmed. They come from all over the world. And New Seasons did not carry farmed shrimp for our first 17 years in business because there was a lot of negative implications in farming shrimp. But like everything, there's innovation and there's change and there's positive movement forward. And so shrimp is one of those items that has moved forward. There was a lot of talk about shrimp farms destructing mangroves. And it wasn't the shrimp themselves, it was the people that were putting the farms in those areas and removing the mangroves that are very, very important to the ecosystem out to start farming the shrimp in that water. And so this is kind of another story, when we were looking for a farmed salmon, which we also did not carry, I happened to meet this amazing group that was farming shrimp in a very sustainable way. Not only were they taking in some small-scale farmers into their cooperative all around the world, they were supporting those communities, they were doing all of this really great work, and they were replanting mangroves in those areas. So they were reforesting these very, very important ecosystems to be able to bring us a really high quality product. And it is the most delicious product. But it doesn't stop there. There are always innovations, and this is the most amazing thing about the seafood industry, which I've been in since I was 9 years old, in the desert, in New Mexico, no sense at all. But the most amazing thing is that these innovations can happen all over the place. There was a trout farm in New Mexico when my father started his seafood business. There is a shrimp farm and a hatchery in the middle of the U.S. that you would not at all think of, and they are creating the shrimp, the little shrimp that go into lots of land-based farms in that area. And by the way, they need your help to stay vibrant and keep moving forward. There's always innovation. It's the most exciting food production system in the entire world.
And when you talk about they need your help, what do you want them to do?
I might need to ask for a little bit of help as well. So I'm going to ask you to please come to my LinkedIn, and I will share a link with you. There is a couple that, two people that have a farm. They are supplying those baby shrimp to a lot of land-based farms. They need help because they had some baby shrimp that came in that were not the right kind. They did not work. It was a whole terrible disaster, and if they don't receive some help in the form of funding, they will go out.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. We don't want to see that.
I will connect you all.
That's great. Kelly, what's a to-do you want for this audience along those same lines?
I mean, I think for me, I would just reiterate what others have said about trying to find sources locally and from underserved communities. I think ButcherBox, taking my kind of company hat off, I would say the way that I think about being a consumer with ButcherBox is that if I can get these proteins locally, that's what I do. And then I go to ButcherBox for the rest.
Right.
I live in Pennsylvania. I can't get fresh seafood, so most of my box is seafood. So I would just say, like, support the communities where you live, and when you can't do that, find retailers that you trust.
Yeah, absolutely. That trust is so important. ButcherBox has really built that. So thank you. Stephen, what's your call to action for this audience?
It's the easy one. Talk to your local seafood manager. And it's not just in our great stores. There's fantastic seafood experts inside the grocery stores. And for someone that's not knowledgeable around the seafood in general, they tell me everything. They are great resources, and they love their jobs. They love the products that they work with. And I think of Daisy, like even our folks that source the product at our category teams, they love this industry. Those are the experts. They live it, they touch it every day, and they will take time to talk to you in the store. So talk to them, ask them questions.
Don't be shy, right?
Like me.
Not shy at all. Please give these panelists a round of applause. Really good advice. Thank you all so much. All right, we have we have two more special sessions coming up, including a surprise giveaway, so please don't go anywhere. I see people walking out. You should sit back down. In this next fireside chat, I get to sit down with a longtime friend, Barton Seaver, an award-winning chef, author, and sustainable blue foods advocate. Please give him the warmest round of applause. truly one of my favorites. Thank you for being here, Barton.
Hi, friend. It's so nice to be reunited with you.
Always.
Danny and I were coming up at the same time in D.C. when you founded Food Tank, and I had just stepped into my first role as executive chef after coming out of Jose Andres' kitchens, running his restaurants. And
yeah,
I have so admired your trajectory and all that you
Same.
have added to this. So
Same.
thank you for being you.
Thank you for being you. You're going to make me cry. Okay, let's get into it. So I want to start with something that I think we hear a lot about in agriculture, and the average age of farmers is rising, and that, you know, presents so many challenges for the agriculture, the terrestrial agriculture sector. But you're also seeing that in the blue food sector too, and I'm wondering what we can do to support that next generation of fishers and aquaculture folks and kelp farmers, et cetera.
Great question, sure. And I think this gets beyond just the people, but really down to how we see blue food economies, the nobility of them, the social license that we afford to them. You know, we all inherently, innately understand the values and virtues and the noblesse of the small American family farmer, right? This is the thread by which the fabric of America has been woven, you know, for amber waves of grain and the fruited plain. We literally sing about this stuff, right? And seafood is always executed somewhere else, somewhere other, by someone else, right? It's beyond the horizon of our attentions. So not only is the fleet graying, right, but the infrastructure is graying.
Right.
The working waterfronts are becoming hotels. They're becoming, you know, the rich people's summer haven, as I see front and fore in Maine, where I live on the ragged, jagged, delicious coast. So not only is the fleet graying in the wild fisheries sense, but also just our ideation of seafood economies and blue food pathways. One of the things that I find so compelling about aquaculture in particular, and you've heard this from Imani, from Alicia, et cetera, already on this stage, people who I just admire and thrill to be in the company of. One of the things that aquaculture really does is it offers this sort of new pathway in. And aquaculture is pretty much a brand new industry. I mean, it's thousands of years old in practice, but in terms of an actual industry commodity, it's about 70 years old, right? I mean, a computer the size of the Pentagon 70 years ago can't do what my iPhone does accidentally in my back pocket now, right? Industries advance. Daisy was speaking about this. The pace of innovation is so ripe and rampant. It's so cool that we are architects of, witness to, and engineers of the first new food system in 10,000 years. Woohoo! Like, how cool is that, man? Yeah. And guess who's populating it? Women, young people. Why? Because you can't go to school and learn how to tie a net and drag it through the water. You can go to learn how to build an oyster farm, to build a kelp farm, right? So now all of a sudden there are these pathways that are sort of, that have that civic virtue that parents see as a noble path. And there's also not a traditional male workforce to displace, however stupid and bullshit of a reason that is to oppress women. But bottom line is that obstacle isn't there.
Yeah.
And so I think aquaculture is really this wonderful way in. And when youth comes into aquaculture, it comes into the working waterfront. It comes into the community's understanding of that food system. It comes into a community's ideation of itself.
Yeah, I'd love to hear where specifically you're seeing these pathways, these, you know, programs that are bringing more young people, more women, more people of color, you know, people who are new to this industry and can really transform it in so many different ways.
Really through the university system is where it's so ripe, and especially up in Maine and throughout the Northeast, we have really, really great schools and very robust extension services that are built in order to facilitate this, right? We all understand land-grant universities and the value and virtue and the ROI of government investment in a land-grant university. Same is true with sea-grant universities. And the work that UConn has done, that Alabama has done, that Florida has done. I mean, this is throughout the country. The problem is that we don't have the regulatory infrastructure or the economic or even the insurance infrastructure in America to then give that talent an upwelling of opportunity. So we train them, and then we ship them overseas, where they make money for someone else, and then we import that seafood, right? The MARA Act, which is a new act that's coming before Congress that EDF has been behind. I'm part of a chef's coalition that's very much behind it. Is it without controversy? Absolutely not. This is democracy. Democracy should be ugly. It should be a brawl, but that we get along at the end of it, right? Yes, there are some flaws in this, but we are working towards. But one of the great aspects of it is that built into it is centers of excellence for aquaculture in historical Black colleges and universities. All throughout our nation. And so we create this upwelling while we're creating a regulatory framework that says we have built it, and now come do it here.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the excitement around sustainably farmed blue foods, but we shouldn't forget wild caught fish. It shouldn't be an either or.
Absolutely. I think don't understand the importance of seafood across the globe. It represents about 2% of our global food supply, and yet it represents 11% of the livelihoods on this planet. So agriculture, 98% of our food supply, provides 25% of livelihoods on this planet. So 2 equals 11, 98 equals 25, right? Like the outsized importance there cannot be overstated. We actually eat more farmed seafood on this planet now than we do wild capture seafood. Though production scales are different, we don't eat all that we catch out of the ocean. We turn it into linoleum tiles and moisturizers and all sorts of shit, right? But the bottom line is that aquaculture is this growth opportunity to create more opportunity, especially in developing nations for women. It's estimated anywhere from 54 to about 70% in some cases of people engaged in aquaculture globally are women. Now, embarrassingly, at the top of the, in the C-suite of the seafood industry, 4% are women, right? So this is not aquaculture is great all the way across the board, but bottom line is it is creating economic opportunity there. And as I think this room knows, ain't shit gonna change until 51% of this planet, women, control 51% of the wealth on this planet. That's the driver, right? So the more economic opportunity we can create through our forks, through the conversations we have, woohoo! Like that's the upwelling that we need.
Yeah, that is the upwelling that we need. You have often said that seafood is often guilty before proven innocent, and we mentioned that at the outset of this summit today. What do you mean by that, and how can we get households to sort of embrace seafood, not be scared of it?
I'm just getting over pneumonia right now, so I'm not. I'm kind of tweaked out on some cough medicine right now. It's kind of awesome.
Do you need a cough drop? How can I help you?
Seafood is guilty before proven innocent in the way that there's so much infighting. The market for seafood has traditionally been very static, 16 pounds per person in America per year. The only way that aquaculture came in and took some business was to do that. It was to take that business. And Alaska, the #1 supplier and producer of seafood, was like, hey, wait, that's Frankenfish. Color added, all of a sudden. And it's a very cannibalistic industry, right? And if we're not growing consumption, then I'm taking your business as the only way to win. Now, why is my salmon better than yours? Because you are depleting the oceans. Wild fisheries are going to disappear. Oceans are going to be empty by 2048. You then retort, farmed salmon is the devil, like farmed and dangerous. It's Frankenfish, blah, 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 color added. Whoa, all of a sudden it's like, I'll have the chicken, right?
Right.
And I am as guilty of this as anyone, maybe a lot more so than most people. I mean, I was a farmed and dangerous card-carrying chef. I was out there testifying in front of Congress why farmed salmon should not exist. And then I had an epiphanous moment about it. I began to understand the pace of change and the possibility of change in this industry and began to see the evolutionary pathways forward. But the bottom line is the consumer and the chef still hold legacy biases about this. And so you go to a seafood counter, it's like, is it fresh or is it frozen? Is it wild or is it farmed? Is it Fukushima radiation? Is it tilapia grown in a toilet? Does it have methyl mercury? Like blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'll have the chicken is what we end up with, right? But as Chef Robert Jones was talking about earlier, like bottom line is seafood is actually a solution. And for too long, the narrative has been, hey, people, you got to fix seafood. And while there is yet much to fix about seafood, so much is still going wrong, so much is now going right that the narrative in this room, what we can broadcast is like, hey, maybe it's time we start using seafood to fix people. We use it with intention. This is not just about sustainability anymore. Sustainability, great. You're not messing something up. Really good baseline, right? But not a sexy idea. So what is our intention? What are we using this seafood to accomplish? Does it create better, healthier, stronger, more robust communities? The ability for generational industries to thrive in places like Maine? Does it create economic opportunity for women in developing nations? All of a sudden, let's get past just the strictly biological aspects of sustainability and start talking about biographical, right? What are we using this seafood to accomplish?
On that point, I'm interested in your thoughts on the Make America Healthy Again movement. And because there has been this focus with the new dietary guidelines on protein, and when we're hearing about fish right now, it's all about protein and how that's going to solve our American health problems. And so I wonder how you reconcile sort of what I'm trying to reconcile, my personal beliefs with and my political beliefs with what's actually real in the seafood industry.
As we've heard over and over today, and as I think everyone in this room believes, the foundation of sustainability is diversity. Whether we're talking about our stock portfolio, whether or not we're talking about a biological system, whether or not we're talking about a social system, or whether we're talking about our diet. We are an ecosystem, right? The diversity that we build in ourselves, the diversity we import into ourselves really matters. So to do this monoculture protein diet, we know this doesn't make sense on just an ecological, just sort of physiological, philosophical level.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not going to sit here and argue the ins and outs and the specific hard science of nutrition, but we know the human body only needs so much of each nutrient every day, right? And after that point, it becomes waste. So diversity in diet is important, as is diversity in every other aspect of our lives and communities.
Love it. Diversity first. We talked about the role chefs play earlier. What role do you hope more chefs play in helping share this message about diversity, about, that they shouldn't be scared of farmed fish, those kinds of things?
Well, I think the Culinary Institute of America has a very big role to play in this, and I hope they're listening. They've already taken an incredible lead on this. You now see menus of change that after years of advocacy from myself, from Jennifer Bushman, from other leaders, from internal in the CIA, beginning to understand that seafood is this compelling category, right? It is worthy of its own study, of its own, initiative and thoughts and upwelling of support on it, right? Chicken, white or dark? Beef, you got grind cut, you got steak cut, you got braised cut. Salmon, you got king, coho, sockeye, pinks, you got steelhead, you got char, you got Atlantics, blah, blah, blah. And this is just the orange flesh fish category alone. What we haven't done is given chefs permission to fall in love with seafood, right? It's been guilty before proven innocent. And so chefs, even by my own lead, have said sustainability of seafood is to be never called out for doing the wrong thing. It is a cover your ass, sort of aspect of our menus. And so we don't treat it as our own. We don't have the enthusiasm or necessarily the assumed authority to go out there and say, hey, I'm going to put more seafood on my menu. I got 15 entrees there, but I got shrimp, tuna, and salmon. That's it. Huh. What about hake or haddock, cusk, ling, monk, skate, wolf, dog, eel, ray, pout, plaice, dab, flounder, cod? Cool, right? These are all just flaky white flesh fish caught right here in the Gulf of Maine. When we begin to give that permission for chefs, not just to do no harm, but to use seafood to accomplish what they want to, creative goals, local and regional goals, narrative, storytelling goals, begin to literally own the process, to own the narrative as their own. That is the fundamental aspect that we need to build up in order for a seafood culture to take root in America.
Yeah, thank you. On that point of building a seafood culture, and to sort of sum up this conversation, what's the advice you want to give eaters who are listening about how to sort of embark? We know we talked about how people are scared of cooking seafood at home.
Just eat seafood. Just eat seafood. Choose seafood for dinner. Decide that seafood is what's for dinner. The bottom line is, as we've heard from the retail panel, as we know from the great work of industry partners, NGO partners, the bottom line is, when you go out or when you go to a store, chances are the seafood that you have available to you is a really pretty good option, right? But then when we put it up against beef, pork, chicken, lamb, veal, turkey, and goat, the things that we actually eat on this planet, seafood looks really good. And it's got to fin up in the sustainability game across 5 very important metrics, from carbon to land use alterations, feed conversion, water, and antibiotics. Seafood comes in on par with the very best of land animal proteins. Not throwing shade on regenerative ag. Woohoo! All for it. On my menu too. But bottom line is, if you want the sustainable center of the plate protein, seafood is where you should start, right? Again, we need to exonerate the category. Understand that it is not just a problem to be solved, but a tool by which we can achieve other things. And I guess the one takeaway, if I could just have your pithy statement.
Please.
The 3 S's of public health. Don't smoke, wear your seatbelt, and eat seafood. It's that important.
Great point to end on. Give Chef a round of applause, please. Thank you, Barton. All right, so as we head into our final conversation, I am excited that we have a few copies of the Blue Food Cookbook, Delicious Seafood Recipes for a Sustainable Future, which is by Barton and celebrity chef Andrew Zimmern. So we're going to share this as a special giveaway. If you look now, some of you will find a sticker taped to the sort of side of your seat. And so I'll give you a second to look for that. It's on the sides. On those, thank you. Thank you very much. Just another second. I know they're out there. I watched them get placed this morning. Great. Good. Okay, Kenzie and Elaine are giving these out. Bernie has one. We have one more to give away. Find your sticker. Great. Yay, give yourselves a round of applause. It's a great book, and I'm sure Barton will stick around to give it a little sign for you. Thank you so much. So we have one final conversation this afternoon to reflect on what we've heard, and I'd like to welcome Manuel Vasquez Escudero, the CEO of Baja Aqua Farms Group. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Andrew Young, the Chief Commercial Officer of Baja Aqua Farms Group. Give him a round of applause. And I feel like a man who needs no introduction at this point, Mark Kaplan, the co-founder and partner at Whole Chain and founder of Better Food Futures. Give him a round of applause. I'd love to hear from you all what stood out from today's conversations. What struck you the most?
Trust. I think there is very good intentions, but at the end of the day, consumer is having the last call. And on that last call, whether you trust is or not. And even the whole sentence of what a company means or stands for or a brand represents. We have a lot of products now with labels, right? Saying that they are certified on this and that and that and that and that extra labeling on the products is also creating some doubts on which is the right one, which is not, whether this company is serious about something or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for what is coming next is how to gain trust from consumers is, in my view, paramount in order to really drive the future, even in terms of sustainability.
Thanks, Manuel. Andrew.
Yeah, just to build on that, I mean, the seafood industry, I've been in the seafood industry a while now, so behind the times in terms of being able to promote itself to the consumer I know, like Barton touched on it, and it's always hard. It's always hard to follow Barton, by the way. So not sure how we got this slot. But, you know, there's so many certifications today in the seafood industry. It just creates so much confusion with the consumer. If you look at other industries that had to reinvent themselves and were forced on the certification side and on traceability to be, the seafood industry has that opportunity, but there's a lack of leadership in terms of guiding that process and making it transparent for the consumer.
Sure. Building trust through that leadership, that transparency. Mark.
Yeah, and I'll just go with Andrew's point here. The thing that stood out to me most from today is the opportunity that there is to take that leadership position and communicate to the consumer and level up that trust and that confidence for the consumer to consume seafood, right?
Yeah.
It's still a purchase. It still requires conversation. It requires storytelling and connecting with people on a values-based, not just providing value. And so I think that's an opportunity that I take away from today, mainly. And a lot of that is why we have this partnership together to create Better Food Future and bring the worlds together and bring the solutions and make them accessible to people, including small-scale producers.
Absolutely.
Who need and want to communicate that message all the more.
Yeah, storytelling has so much power right now. We heard a lot about myth busting today, and I think this is important for you all to address. How has technology helped dispel the myths that have been so sort of rampant in seafood and aquaculture and everything else that we've been talking about today?
Well, I think Bluefin is a perfect example for that because we were the kind of guys that we were not allowed to enter this room some years ago. We were the villains, right? And not even my good friend Sitlali here was allowing me to sit down on the table with her because it was like a serious question mark on whether Bluefin was actually a fishery, that it was doing things right.
Sure.
And out of the many stories that we hear, I can tell you that the one that has most successfully really converted all these bias and stigma of 20 years of not really doing things the right way is Bluefin now. Now is a stock that is redepleted. The stock assessment, the objectives that we had for 10 years from now, we were achieving those objectives last year. As a result of that, the whole community of scientific people from the West and from the East got together in order to even have an increase on the quota finally after so many years of not having a quota increase. And guess what? We were the only ones opposing to increase. So that's funny, right? So you have a lot of scientific people in front of you. Actually, I just came from that meeting that was last week in Newport Beach. And I had people from NOAA, from Japan and Korea and many other countries, because in this case, the fishery is managed by the East and the West. So imagine everything is by consensus, and all the scientific people needs to agree on the method, the stats, and the numbers. And they were raising their hand to say, hey, let's increase the quota, and crazy numbers you will hear from Japan, like 130. Then we were saying 0, then the US a bit sitting on the fence. And then at the end of the day, I had the opportunity to not only make a statement, but make a presentation on how the company is behaving today and what Baja is doing behind. And I ended up my presentation saying, guys, by no means, I'm not here to tell you what is right to do, because you are the science and you have to tell us what is right and what is wrong. But I can tell you that even from this side of the table, we don't need more quota. What we need is more companies to behave in the right way. That's what we need, because that takes much more than just to have more fish available in order to go and get it. In Baja Aqua Farms, coming to your point, we have really made this bridge where tradition is meeting technology and innovation. So we are the first farm with a centralized feeding system. So that means that you have one vessel instead of 20 going around. We are not shoveling the feed. but we are pumping the feed in the most natural way, which is fresh, no pellets, no antibiotics, nothing, but just the same way that the tuna will be eating out in the ocean is the same way that we are treating it. Really taking care of every single animal that we have. We also have artificial intelligence. So before, you were having fishermen trying to count how many fishes in the water and saying, oh, we got 20 tons, or this set is 200 tons. Now we have some cameras that are going with, spectral lenses to film the whole fish. And like you do in the airport, where you see dots on your face coming in and out and counting people, we do the same with tuna. We count the tuna. We measure the tuna on the length, on the width. We have algorithms now. And then we come to the scientific community to say, now you don't need to trust the human eye. Now you have all this technology to tell you how many fish do we have for certain with a 98% accuracy. How much is that? How much is the weight? And how this fish is really even growing on the corp, right?
Yeah.
So you will have much more certainty in terms of innovation and how to manage a fishery that it was in the past really condemned to be a failure.
Yeah, that tech helped create that certainty so much better. Andrew, quickly.
I can't say it any better than that, but I mean, yeah, absolutely. And that actually, from a commercial side of the business, it opens the door now to have conversations. The bluefin industry is mostly focused on high-end Japanese omakase style restaurants today, but now that the stigma is starting to go away around the sustainability, we're starting to have conversations with retailers. We're starting to have conversations with national chains, white tablecloth steakhouses that are very interested in the product, but before would stay away from it because of that stigma.
That erasing that stigma is so key to all of this, and it's exciting to see it unfold. Mark, you get the final word.
To me, the biggest myth that I heard today is that traceability and sustainability is more expensive, and it's hard. Yes, it is complicated in concept, but once you start to use these tools, just like any new tool, it gets easier over time, and it does reduce the price, like my colleague Jason was talking about, especially with standardization. And something that we've done and what we do with Better Food Future is that we try and make this more and more accessible. And like earlier today, we even signed a new strategic collaboration with Sustainable Fisheries Partnership to integrate with their seafood metrics system to make it even easier to bring those two worlds together. So you can get traceability and your sustainability reporting done in one shot, which just reduces that cost and that effort barrier. Because a lot of the challenge comes from like portal fatigue and just in a different way than certification, but there's a lot of noise around like blue tech and things like that. And also what we also do with Better Food Future, as you know, is we bring together the public and private sector to help make these tools more accessible to small scale producers, which we've done starting really in Mexico. And that's actually how I got connected with you guys. Norwegian Cruise Lines and their Sail and Sustain initiative has a commitment to local procurement. So here's a good example of a solution being delivered. So they donated to fund the cost of market access requirements for small scale producers to enable them to go forward and give them the market access that they so badly want. So like, and we've done that with them in Environmental Defense Fund and created a documentary that you can all see that with Food Tank and everything. So that just letting you know, like there are examples out there, and I just wanted to give like that call to action that's understanding that these are intimidating issues at first, like just try it. Get started. You don't have to go like in too deep. You can, pun intended. you can just get started easily and just try and improve little by little over time. it's much easier to do that than waiting till the last minute of a retailer or someone forcing or asking you to do it, and then needing to rush and panic. And yes, then that is complicated.
Right. But you can make this easy.
You can make this a lot easier on yourselves, just getting started a little ahead of being asked to do it.
Absolutely. Give these panelists a round of applause, please. Such a great sum up. Thank you, gentlemen. I also want to thank our host, WBUR. I can't thank you enough. This production team is excellent. Please give them a round of applause. I want to thank our partners, Better Food Future, the Marine Stewardship Council, the Culinary Institute of America, and Bluefina. Give them a round of applause. Thanks to all of you who are watching online. We really appreciate you. Thanks to all of you who are here today on a Sunday afternoon. It was nice to see this room full and with such, people who are so into this issue and really want to make it better. I also want to thank the Food Tank team. We couldn't do any of this without Bernie, Kenzie, and Elena, and our volunteers. Please give them a round of applause. And again, thank you all for being here. It means the world to us. Thank you so much. So nice to, thank you.